Final countdown. Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Baseball Waiver Wire Show every Thursday at 4:45 p.m. Eastern, 1:45 p.m. Pacific, or when Casey Vlad to the Bone Scheinvold is having some technical difficulties, starting at 4:51 p.m. and 1:51 p.m. respectively. But here we are, and I'm here with Ross the Boss.
Hey, everybody, I'm Ross the Boss, and I'm going to talk waiver wire baseball with you, cowboy.
Well, wow. I'm glad to be back here, Ross.
Welcome back. Welcome to the party, pal.
I missed you. I'm Dr. Dan Radner. I'm here to talk about the best waiver wire pickups. Listen, we're still in the heat of things. Fantasy baseball is a long, long game. You got to pay attention. We're going to get you the 60% and under rostered on Yahoo people that you need to pick up. And we have plenty of ideas. So you and Casey, you manned this the last 2 weeks. So I don't exactly know what I missed, though I've been certainly following the waiver wire. I know who to pick up. But let's jump in with your, let's say, top four. Any position at all.
Any position. Put me on the spot. So Joey Vado, he's our cover boy this week. He's 38 years old. He just had COVID last week. He got rid of it, came back off the IR, 6 for 15, 2 home runs, killing the ball. I mean, he's the Joey Vado from the MVP days. He's back, baby. He started off slow, but pick him up now. He's angry that people talk bad about him, including Dr. Dan Ratner. He's angry that Casey Scheinfeld said bad things about him, but he's back. So I love Joey Vado this week. He's my pickup of the week. I also love Ian Happ, and Dan hates Ian Happ. That's why I said it. Ian Happ, University of Cincinnati, another guy hitting the cover off the ball the past 2 weeks, especially when he plays the Reds. I don't know why, but against the Reds, he's like Superman. So this week, he's been like Superman for the Reds. But for the past 2 weeks, he's been hitting over 280, 2 home runs, stolen base. I like Ian Happ a lot this week. Another guy that I like this week is Kyle Farmer, another Red. 2 home runs today. Two, hitting 386 in the past 2 weeks. Shortstops are not the strongest position, so that's the reason I said it. If you need a shortstop, pick him up. He's a streamer, but he's been destroying the ball. And another guy that I like is Cole Calhoun. I mentioned him last week. He's hitting over 300. He had a home run last night. Unbelievable. Those are my top 4.
Okay, now I'm going to get to my top 4, but the first question I have to ask is, can you trust a man who has a picture of himself in the computer behind? Can we show this?
Listen, I'm a model, and we all know that. And I walk the catwalk. We all know that. So if people need a model for one of their modeling for their sportswear or anything, I'm available, wearing the Mavericks shirt today just because the Mavericks will probably be their last game tonight. They're playing Golden State. They'll probably get eliminated, but I'm still rooting for them. But you can trust a guy with their picture behind him, of course.
You know what? It really depends on the guy. Yes. All right, we have a comment coming in, and it's from Casey Vlad to the Bone Scheinvold.
I can't wait to hear this comment.
He says, deep pickup of the week, Cal Mitchell. Tell me I'm wrong. Ross, take it away.
Cal Mitchell, that's a deep one. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's a good idea. I don't know how long he'll be starting for. We'll see what happens. But I can't say it's a bad idea.
Okay, so Cal Mitchell, outfielder of Pittsburgh Pirates. He's a power speed guy, and he could easily get playing time going forward if he plays well. We're going to have to see what happens. Yeah. I think he's a good one to stash. I'm going to get to my top 4, and then we'll get into the other players. Right. And in case he's got some other comments, which I'm going to get to in a second.
Yeah.
But all right, now listen, when I'm looking at pickups, it's interesting. I feel like you and I approach this a bit differently. And some of it is that I think you have an overall head-to-head ideology. I'm a very rotisserie kind of guy. So I'm always looking ahead to be like, is this going to last? Yeah. So when I hear about a guy like Buck Farmer, I'm like, I don't think that's going to last. Kyle Farmer. Yeah, Buck Farmer. Who is that? He's a player.
You're thinking about Butt Naked, my porn name, but keep going.
Buck Farmer's a player. But I look for players that I think can make it last. Tyler Naquin is one of these guys. He's still under 60% rostered. I do not know why. In fact, I just saw an article on Yahoo. I think it's a guy named Fred Zinke. I really like this guy. He writes good stuff.
Fred Zinke, yeah, I like that kid. Yeah, he's good.
So Fred Zinke wrote that, if you take the average of what a player should be doing to get you to essentially the top 3 in all the categories, and you measure a player against that, you'll know if they're doing their job. Well, Tyler Naquin meets all those numbers, and he's under 60% rostered. You got to scoop this guy up very quickly. Actually, you don't. I don't know why. People aren't running to get him. Another guy that I really like, this might be controversial for you, Ross, because you cut him after outbidding me on him earlier, Jock Peterson. Now, I know he just had a 3-homer, 8 RBI game, and that's going to pad his stats quite a bit. But the fact is, this amount of power just floating around on the wire is pretty rare. Patrick Wisdom's out there too, but he's not one of my top 4. I think that Jock Peterson can keep it up, and the reason is when he plays against righties, this is what he does all the time.
Yep. It's funny. I mean, I watched Jock play. When he hit those 3 home runs, I watched the game. And the one thing you don't do is throw him a fastball. When he hits a fastball, he hits a home run. I mean, you throw him off-speed stuff. And on his 3rd home run, guess what the pitcher did? Right down the middle, fastball, 96 miles an hour. He hit it 450 feet.
Crushed.
I mean, it's like, don't throw him fastballs. That's the thing about Jock Peterson. I know that.
Yep.
If I know it, that team he played against better know it.
Okay, I'm going to mention another guy, though, that I think I don't know how much he's on people's radars all that much. But listen, this is one of those steals guys that also produces across the board. Harrison Bader. The St. Louis Cardinals lineup, I want a lot of pieces of that at this point. Juan Lopez also looking great. There's a lot of great Cardinals players that you can scoop up. They have been absolutely loading up my team. And then Royce Lewis may have been sent to the minors, but he's going to be playing third base and outfield. You want to scoop this guy up now. Do not miss out. I said 4. I didn't even mention pitchers. We'll get to that soon.
We'll get to that. And Royce Lewis plays for Minnesota, just so everybody knows.
That's right. He comes in with shortstop eligibility already, but third base is coming, and so is outfield. And it really looks like he's going to play because he was already up and he was hitting. All right, let's get to some comments from Casey. Casey said also, Aaron Ashby will be in the Brewers rotation for a while because of Freddie Peralta's injury.
Yeah, Freddie Peralta, just so everybody knows, he's out for like 3 months. And Fly to the Bone is 100% right. Ashby's a great arm, and he'll get the starts. And I won't be surprised if he never becomes a relief pitcher ever again. He might be a starter for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I think Adrian Hauser also is available in that Brewers rotation. I think he's worth playing. I probably would rather have Aaron Ashby just because of the upside. But I do like both.
Yeah,
I put in claims for them both this time, and I wanted Aaron Ashby, and guess who got him? Vlad to the Bone, Casey.
Vlad to the Bone, Casey Scheinfeld.
Now, Casey also says that, and this is of your portrait in the background, he thought it was the George Costanza portrait from Seinfeld.
With his shirt off at the thing. Yeah, it's funny.
All right, let's start to go through the different positions. We're going to start with catcher, right. Ross. If you had to pick up one catcher who's 60% and under, who would it be?
MJ Melendez of Kansas City would be the one I would, if I had to narrow it down to one. MJ Melendez is killing the ball. He's just under 60%. Next week, he'll probably be over. I know Perez will be back probably next week. Doesn't matter. They'll make Melendez a DH. He's been like 3 home runs since they brought him up. He's hitting 259, bunch of RBIs. I mean, he's been just tearing the cover off the ball. So for me, the one catcher I would get, hopefully he's available in your league, is MJ Melendez.
I think that's a great pick. I really do agree that he would be the number one pickup here. And actually, look, if you're a Salvador Perez owner and you have room on your roster, it's worth having both. The combination of those two catchers is pretty nasty. Although Salvador Perez, if he's playing not at the catcher position, obviously he's the one you want in there. The one guy that I would mention, though, that I think is a really, really good pickup is Christian Vasquez. He's a very underrated catcher, and the catcher position is just, it's not loaded at all. It never is. And, this is absolutely...
No, Dan, that's a great one. I mean, Christian is hitting 353 in the past 2 weeks. I mean, and for your catcher to hit 353 and is just totally a streamer. I mean, I would pick him up if I needed a catcher.
Especially in like head-to-head leagues. Just scoop him up and play him for now.
Yeah, there you go. Good one.
Now, Casey's noting William Contreras. He definitely should be on this list.
I mentioned last week. Yeah.
Yeah, and, it looks like he's going to get playing time, not just at catcher, too. So he could be really valuable. All right, let's jump to first base, Ross. Who do you have? I know Joey Vado is at the top of your list.
We mentioned Joey Vado. I'll also mention Frank Swindell of the Chicago Cubs. He's been killing the ball. I mean, past 2 weeks, 4 home runs, sitting 275. I think he had a couple hits today also. I mean, Frank Swindell is a great pickup, especially in Wrigley Field when it gets hotter. I mean, the ball flies. I mean, I think Casey Scheinfeld could probably hit a few home runs in that stadium. That's how bad it is. I mean, it's unbelievable. And, I'm going to say his name. The past 2 weeks, he's been killing it, is Seth Brown. And you're saying, who the hell is Seth Brown? Seth Brown plays in Oakland, small market. I think they average about 7,000 people a game. I mean, no one goes to these games. I mean, no one watches them. No one even knows they're a team. But he's hitting .293 with 3 home runs the past 2 weeks, Seth Brown. He's available in 97% of Yahoo leagues. 97%. So, I mean, the first base position, I feel, is the one position in fantasy sports in which there's a lot of people to choose from. I mean, you can waiver wire and pick up somebody that's destroying the ball. So those are my 2 favorite pickups of the week for first base.
Okay, I have a couple of options, but I'm actually not going to use any of them if they have eligibility elsewhere for the exact reason that Ross just said. First base is a lot stronger than some other positions, so I don't feel the need to do that. However, if you're looking for a good pickup, I think Christian Walker is really finally gaining some heat. He's up to, I can't remember how many homers he has now, but he's been going, he has had 5 homers in the last 4 days. I think he has 11.
We talked about him last week. I mean, and Christian, do you know if he's Jewish or not?
I do not. It seems like with the name Christian, he would be
he's not Jewish.
Probably Muslim? No, I'm kidding. No. I think I understand where this is going. Christian Walkerberg is available. I'm kidding. Christian Walker, though, one thing, those like advanced stats guys, they're going crazy about Christian Walker. They're saying his numbers are actually going to go even more up. Now, while we're on the Arizona Diamondbacks, we have a comment coming in. What kind of name is Pavin? This is about Pavin Smith. It does make you, I don't know. I don't know where they got that.
It's a very, I don't know what to say, but it's a name that you think it's a golfer, Pavin Smith. He sounds like a golfer.
He does.
If I had to say who's Pavin Smith, I would say, that's the golfer. He's in the tour.
Or maybe it's what happens to Kevin Smith when he says his own name after he's been hit on the head. He becomes Pavin Smith.
Yeah,
I don't really know. But we have a comment coming in from Chris Atwater, one of our favorite co-players.
Chris Atwater, who was at your wedding.
That's right. Oh, he finally got the really wedding news out, right?
Pulled his pants down in the bathroom. I remember.
That, Chris, we know that didn't happen, and I will clear your name right here. Chris said 7,000 for average attendance in Oakland, I think, is being quite generous. I think he's probably right. But I still think they have the old Cleveland Indians of 1983 beat. Because I would go to a game and there were maybe 2,300.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Oakland Stadium is a mess. I mean, their organization is a mess. I mean, whoever owns that team, I think he's the founder of Gap. I met him before. I mean, he should definitely sell the team. It's just a disaster.
All right. Well, that's your public service announcement about what the Oakland A's should be doing. And now we're going to move to second base. I'll tell you what, I'll jump in first here, Ross. Right. I'll mostly throw it to you, but Brendan Rodgers, 58% owned, last call. The guy is a former very, very high prospect. Looks like he's coming around. Is he going to go through times where there's a dip and maybe even end up cuttable again? Yeah, but this is a guy I would ride while he's hot, and he's probably somebody who I think is going to stick in lineups pretty much all year. Ross, what do you think about that?
Brendan Rodgers hitting .378 the past 2 weeks with a home run. Plays in Colorado. Huge advantage for hitters, as we all know. I agree 100%. Brendan Rodgers, if you don't have him, if you need a second baseman, pick him up now. He won't hurt you at all. Another guy I like is Josh Rojas. He's been heating up a little bit the past 2 weeks, hitting .310, 3 home runs. He can steal bases too. He plays multiple positions. I mean, he plays second and third. I mean, he plays all over, the utility guy, but he plays every day for the Diamondbacks also. For me, I feel he's going to have a good year. I think he's a good pickup right now. If you need a utility guy or need some guy on your bench that can fill in different positions, it's not a bad pickup.
I also, you've talked about this guy really from the beginning, but Willmar Fleur is pretty underrated. He's a first base, second base, third base guy. I plug him in probably at second base at this point. But third base has been pretty thin all year, so you can pick him up as a third baseman for sure as well. He hasn't been hitting as well. I'm aware of that. But you got to remember, fantasy baseball is a game of cycles. I mean, I go on these chats sometimes just to see what people are saying when somebody's slumping, and they're like, this guy's the worst. I'm like, He's over his last 12. I'm like, that's 3 games. Don't get into that mindset. You got to see the player overall and whether they are likely to continue performing. They're going to rebound if they've got the track record. Ross, who else would you say at second base before we move on?
I mean, we have so many guys that play different positions coming up that those are the 2 I wanted to say for now.
Okay, well, Casey is chiming in with a shout out to Kike Hernandez. He says, Boston seems to be waking up offensively. Getting Kike Hernandez could be really valuable. And Chris Atwater says, good one, Casey. And then he put the laughing emoji, which either means he agrees and he can't believe someone agreed with him, or he thinks it's terrible. And I'll tell you why. Chris Atwater is a Boston fan. And Chris, I hope you won't mind my saying this, but Boston fans, they think they know suffering because they used to suffer. But you haven't suffered in a long time. Things are going well for you. Listen,
Celtics.
If I was happy for any Boston fan at all, it would be Chris Atwater. All right, we're going to move on to shortstop. Ross, who do you got?
I got one of Casey Scheinfeld's old players, Gio Urshela. Did I say it right?
You did actually pretty well, Urshela, but that was pretty good.
So he's been hitting the ball. He's been in the past 2 weeks. He's hitting .333, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. The past 2 weeks, he's been hitting really well. And again, the shortstop position for me this week is kind of shallow. But there's a lot of guys that play short, and the other guy that can play short for you he's in my top 4 was Kyle Farmer. As I mentioned, he's hitting .381, and today he had 2 home runs. And last year, I don't know if anybody remembers, but he's like a streaker. Like he'll go in these like 2 or 3 week huge runs and like boost his average up 80 points and hit 6 or 7 home runs. I mean, that's what he does. So right now, Kyle Farmer, if I was you, if I needed a shortstop that can hit, pick him up.
All right, I already mentioned Royce Lewis, but I do want to say him again because this guy can be fantasy gold, and he's going to be back up pretty soon, so pounce on him. But there's a couple of guys who I would put in. Let's say you have an injury or you just want to get the hot hand for a little bit. Well, Jonathan Velar he's hitting pretty well right now. In the last 2 weeks, he's doing some things, and he steals bases, and that can be very key in certain leagues. So look out for him. He's got second base, third base, and shortstop eligibility. Another guy with the same eligibility, second base, third base, and shortstop, is Joey Wendell. He's coming back. Don't forget to pay attention to players who are injured. You're going to need to stay on top of this because you can get a lot of value out of that. Anybody you want to add, Ross?
Nope, we're good.
All right, Casey mentioned Jurickson Profar, and I actually have to remember where is his position eligibility.
He has at least 2.
I think he's got second base and outfield, if I'm recalling correctly. But I'll
2.
check on that.
Yeah.
Well, while I check on that, Ross, bring me your third base options.
I want to mention an oldie but a goodie. And last year, you guys ripped me apart on this guy. And if you rip me apart again,
is it Hunter Dozier?
It's Hunter Dozier.
It is. I can't believe it.
Hunter Dozier's hitting.
You brought up Ian Happ and Hunter Dozier in the same.
Yeah, I
show.
brought them both back this week because you gave me a horrible time about them, and
I was
no
right.
reason to. Hunter Dozier in the past 2 weeks, he has 2 home runs. He's hitting .300. He's every week he's getting better. I mean, the guy is just getting better. You can't bench him anymore. You can't make fun of him. I know he plays in Kansas City. I know it's a small market, but Hunter Dozier, the third base position isn't really the greatest position right now.
No,
so if you're in a deep league and you need to pick up a player who's going to start hitting the ball hard, especially in a weak team they're going to face teams that are not going to play their best players against them. Hunter Dozier's a good pickup right now.
Okay, I want to say something, and this is giving you credit for something, Ross. Hunter Dozier is actually a smart pickup in the short term. You just have to know the difference.
I said streamer, yeah. I said,
right. No, you're saying the right thing, but I just want to make sure that the viewers understand we know the difference. There are times where we're making a recommendation because this is a good play for now. Yeah. Okay, we're getting some clarity on Jurickson Profar's position structure. It's first base, second base, and outfield. And if you're playing with left field, center field, and right field, he actually plays all of them. So some leagues have that. Casey also notes O'Neal Cruz could be up soon, so you may want to pounce on him. And he asked, what are your thoughts about Guardians shortstop Ahmed Rosario? I'll tell you what my thoughts are on him. My thoughts are I need to Google what's happening with. I'm kidding. I'm actually not super up on him these days. He's a former top prospect. He's obviously playing for my team, and I'm even wearing a Guardians t-shirt right now. But ultimately, it depends on whether you think he's starting to figure it out, how he's going to play right now. I don't see any need to have him on. I don't see any need to snatch him up because he's not even playing that well. One thing you have to think about is who's going to snatch up these guys. You got to see if they're playing well enough to worry whether they need to be moved off of your watch list and onto your team. A guy that I do think needs to be moved off of watch lists and onto teams is Alec Baum. I've talked about him a lot on this show. He's still doing it, and he's putting up great average. It's interesting. His on-base percentage is not that much better than his average, which, you want to see more walks. But he is putting up some good power numbers. Third base is pretty weak. I think I would rather have Alec Baum than Hunter Dozier, even in the short term, because he's doing decently in the short term anyway. Another guy that I'm really excited about is Juan Lopez. I know he has just been through a recent slump, but guys are going to do that. If you look at his track record, he's done it before. He's only 24 years old. I think he's figuring out to hit. I also really trust St. Louis. There's just certain organizations that seem to know how to get this done, and they seem to be one of them. Anybody you'd add on third base before we move to outfield?
No, I mean, I think we're good.
We're good. All right, we're moving to outfield. Ross, I'll give you the first shot at it. Who are your maybe top two outfielders that
you mentioned? Jock Peterson, Tyrone Taylor of Milwaukee. In the past 2 weeks, this kid's hitting .278, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs. He's the real deal. Milwaukee has a really good team. They just get better every month. The starting pitching, I think, is the top in the National League. That's my opinion. And their hitting's getting better. Tyrone Taylor's a goodie. I mean, this kid's a young, strong player. He'll just get better every week. Ian Happ, I already talked about, and Cole Calhoun. I thought he would kind of die down a little bit because he was so hot 2 weeks ago, and I brought his name up. The past 2 weeks, 391, 6 home runs, 12 RBIs. That's the past two. I mean, he's not getting cold. So I suggest, if he's available in your league, I suggest pick him up because I want to say he's a streamer, but maybe he's not. Maybe he's going to have like an unbelievable year like he had 3 years ago. I don't know. But Cole Calhoun is a really good pickup right now.
Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle and you just want to try it on and see. A guy that I think could be that is Mikey Stremski. The guy is going bananas the last month. He obviously has the pedigree from his family name, good old Yaz. But Mikey Stremski's hitting very well. And again, San Francisco, it's an organization that I just trust. They get a lot out of those players. And I know he has struggled at times. Could he end up on your waiver wire again? Yes, but he's the kind of player that I'd want to check out because he could run the whole season doing a great job. Another guy, though, that I would not let go of at all anytime soon is Austin Hayes. Baltimore, teams like Baltimore, they get a bad rap for fantasy purposes because there's good players on these bad teams. Somebody's got to hit well, hopefully. Some teams don't figure that out, but most do. And Austin Hayes, meanwhile, he was a big-time talent and still is. That's the thing. These guys their talent doesn't evaporate. So I'd scoop up Austin Hayes. He's a guy I could see owning for the rest of the year. I already mentioned Tyler Naquin. I think you got to pounce on him. Another guy that I do like is Alec Thomas. If you're looking at his numbers, let's say over the last 30 days, it's going to be a little bit skewed because you got to remember he just got called up. He's still climbing the charts. But, his numbers aren't that great. It's true, but he's putting up good numbers. And meanwhile, he's a power speed guy who hasn't even started running yet. If he starts running, you really got something. Now we've got a comment coming in. This is about third base. It's about Evan Longoria. Here's the comment. He may need a walker, but Evan Longoria is good for third base considering how thin the position is. So the walker he may need is Larry Walker from 1994.
Yeah, I mean, Evan Longoria had 2 home runs the other day. Just got off the DL. I mean, he is old. I mean, I agree. But the guy can hit. I mean, I never said he couldn't hit. And I root for him. I like Evan Longoria. The only question is if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and I don't remember if he has DL eligibility or IL eligibility right now. I think he still does, so you can scoop him up. No, I actually believe he came off.
No, he came off. He had 2 home runs, and I told you he just had 2 home runs the other day.
I somehow missed that. I'm sorry. I was managing the show, zoned out, didn't even pay
words
attention.
Coming out of my mouth? Yeah.
Do you want? All right, we have an observation from Chris Atwater. He says, I never worry much about the Red Sox offense, but their pitching is a joke. I heard they reached out to Albert Pujols to see if he would be interested.
Well, Chris Sale is actually in Florida. He's going to pitch supposedly he's going to pitch a few innings in the minor leagues, and then he's going to come to Boston and pitch batting practice. That's supposedly the plan with him, but he's probably a month away.
Yep, and I think you don't have to worry about Albert Pujols being the ace of the Red Sox, but it does show the state of your belief system in their pitching right now. And look, it is rough, especially considering what they've had in previous years. We're going to get to pitchers now in a second. I just did want to say there was an observation about two outfielders that we should maybe consider. David Peralta and Harrison Bader. I mentioned Harrison Bader before, especially from the stolen base perspective. It's a no-brainer to own him. I'm going to mention A.J. Pollock also. Yes, he's an injury risk, but use him while he's not hurt. Ross, what do you think about David Peralta before we move to pitcher?
Arizona outfielder, average arm, average bat. Everything's average. He's not going to hurt you. He's not going to really help you. I mean, there's better
sometimes
players.
That does help you. Sometimes
there's better players we mentioned before. I mean, he's a very average ball player.
I think that's true. But listen, if you're desperate and you need an average ball player, David Peralta.
You better be in a 16-team league or something crazy. So, yeah.
All right. We're going to move to starting pitcher. Ross, I'll give you the first crack at it.
Michael Lorenzo, ex-Red. This kid can hit, too, but he doesn't get to anymore because they have a DH. Michael Lorenzo, ERA in the past 2 weeks is .69. This kid throws hard. Great. It's a great background, too. I mean, he's a great story behind him, too. If you have time, just YouTube it. It's unbelievable. But I love Michael Lorenzo for the Angels. I also like Jeffrey Springs of Tampa Bay. His ERA for the year is 1.32. He passed the Dan Ratner test, 27 innings, 27 Ks. He passed your test. And then somebody that's really heating up right now because Max Scherzer is out for at least 2 months is Taijuan Walker. For the Mets. 2 wins, 1.42 ERA the past 2 weeks. He's been pitching really well. And somebody has to pick the slack up because Max is out. So those are the 3 top guys I like. There's a few other guys I kind of like, but I'm giving you the top 3.
All right. We mentioned Aaron Ashby before. He probably would be my top pickup right now because he just has such upside, and playing on the Brewers is a big help. I mentioned Adrian Hauser as well. I like both of those guys. Here's another guy that I like that probably not a lot of people are liking right now because he got absolutely bombed 2 starts ago. But it's Corey Kluber. I still think Kluber is a useful pitcher. This is different than the David Peraltas of the world. You could argue that Corey Kluber is now an average pitcher. But average pitching sometimes is what gets it done. You sometimes need just the numbers. When you're playing an outfielder, you want somebody who's going to represent more. But I do think Corey Kluber is a pretty safe bet to be good. We'll see if it ends up burning you. My apologies, but I do think that he's worth checking out. You could pick him up and keep him on your bench just to see if he's putting together consistent outings. But he only had 1 bad outing, and everybody can do that. I have Dylan Cease. That guy is a great pitcher. He got absolutely destroyed the other night.
Yeah, he's like over 60%. There's no way he's under.
Oh, I'm not talking about Dylan Cease as a pickup. What I'm saying is Corey Kluber got bombed. Dylan Cease got bombed. Anybody can get bombed. It happens.
He had a bad game. Anybody gets bombed. Yeah,
it happens. And I'm just saying, Corey Kluber's only had 1 of those games, so I think he is. Yeah. I think he's worth picking up. Another guy that I would stash from an IL perspective is Dustin May. Any piece of the Dodgers rotation I like.
When's he coming back? Do you have any idea?
I do not actually know the latest on him. I'll tell you what. I'm going to look into that while you get started on relief.
Dustin May, just so everybody knows, he plays for the Dodgers. He has really red hair like Carrot Top, but he throws really hard. Great pitcher, great kid. I can't wait when he comes back. He's going to help the Dodgers. The Dodgers need more pitching help. I mean, the Dodgers starting pitching.
They're going to go to a 9-man rotation.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not quite that.
It's so heavy. But yes, I like Dustin May a lot. So with relief pitchers, is that where we're at?
Well, we are there, but actually we had a question come in. This is from Chris Atwater. He says, thoughts on George Kirby. George Kirby, of course, the Seattle Mariners pitcher, a very young phenom, and many people are very excited about him. What do you have to say about it, Ross?
I mean, I've seen him pitch many times. I've seen his minor league stuff. He just needs experience. I'm not sold on him yet. The Mariners also have Gilbert, who you brought up last year, who I feel is the future of that franchise. for starting pitching. Kirby, I haven't seen him pitch enough in Major League Baseball to give an opinion yet, but his pedigree and everything else tells me he'll be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I also think Seattle's not a bad place to be pitching.
No, I mean, the Mariners are really slumping too. I mean, as a team as whole, I mean, they've been dropping games. I don't know what's wrong with them. I know that a couple of their hitters are not hitting. Like Winker is not hitting the ball right now. But they're hitting and they're pitching. They're just not playing well. And they had such high hopes at the beginning of the year. Big disappointment in Seattle.
Well, a lot of times teams go on skids also, and then they'll turn it around. So really take a look under the hood and see who you got, and trust the guys that you see have the pedigree and the history of having performed that way. So I looked into Dustin May. Listen, he's not coming back in May. His last name is May. I wish he was coming back in May, but it turns out he's probably coming back in August, it looks like. Even so, that's not that far away. If you don't have room on your IL, I certainly understand not stashing him, but he could be a good stash for the end of the season. All right, Ross, let's move to relief pitcher, and we'll wrap up on this.
I also have a game I want to play really quick with you after this, so let's make some time. Johan Duran, he throws the ball 103 miles an hour, plays in Minnesota. He has 4 saves, 2.53 ERA. He's just getting better and better. Somebody has to close games in Minnesota. I think this guy's the future. He throws really hard, and what I've seen, he can't be hit when he's pitching strikes. He's the real deal. So pick up Duran. He's not related to Roberto Duran. No relation. He's not not at all. No mas. But he's my number one pickup in relievers. It's funny. There's really no one else I'm really jumping at this week in relief pitching. I did have Ashby as a reliever, not as a starter. So Ashby to me is a great pickup. But as we mentioned, he passes the Dan Ratner test. 28 innings pitched, 34 strikeouts. So he passes your test. So those are really the two I have, but we already talked about Ashby, so I don't have to give a whole
Yeah, well, Duran was my top pickup also. I mean, listen, let's keep in mind, Emilio Pagan is doing a pretty good job in the main closer's role, but Duran's going to get his chances, and I think ultimately could easily take that over for the rest of the year. He's going to be very valuable. So he's my number one pickup at relief pitcher also. Another guy, and Chris Atwater loved him too. Shout out to you, Chris. Tanner Rainey, 30% rostered. I know he doesn't get a lot of save chances, but this kind of stuff is very hit or miss.
He had a save last night.
Yeah, he did. And meanwhile, his velocity is going up and up and up. So he's starting to get to a point where you see he's going to be a pretty effective reliever in all likelihood. These teams that don't get a lot of saves, it goes in cycles. People were saying Joe Barlow was completely worthless. Then he went on a complete tear. Texas was getting a lot of save opportunities all of a sudden. It happens. If it's the known closer and you need a guy, look for a guy who is pitching pretty well and has reasons to be pitching well, like the velocity. Now, Ross, you said you had a game for me, so I'm going to leave space for it.
So I played this game last week with Casey Scheinfeld, and he did okay. I don't know. We'll see how you do. It's called Cut or Save. And basically, this is not a dynasty league thing. It's not a keeper thing. It's a redraft league. You don't get to save any. So it's people that you think will help your team this year, not next year.
So it's basically cut or hold, because saves has that relief pitcher connotation.
Okay,
you got to get that
cut,
right?
Cut or fire. I don't know. Whatever you want to say.
Cut or fire. Everybody's under fire.
Or, fire.
Cut or hold. All right, I got it. We'll say cut or save. I just wanted to make sure.
So I'll tell you the player. If you have him on your, would you cut this guy, or would you just cut him, or would you wait till he gets hot? Is basically what I'm asking. So the first one is Elroy Jimenez. He plays for the White Sox, hitting .222. He has 1 home run for the year. Do you keep him on your roster, or do you cut him and pick up Jock Peterson? What do you do? Go.
Okay, first we got to get his name right. It's Eloy Jimenez, but I love when you mispronounce it.
Go ahead. Go.
Okay, Eloy Jimenez, easy keep.
Okay, so you keep him. So you're gonna let's say you only have 2 injury spots available. You're going to keep him in an injury spot.
Listen, it depends on the context. It always depends on the league context. If you've got short benches, no. If you've got an 8-team league, no.
Let's say it's short benches. Are you going to wait for the superstar to come back? Or are you going to cut him and pick up somebody?
It really depends on what you need. You got to maximize your roster spots. Is he a cut candidate? Yes, but I would keep him.
Chris Bryant. He's been hurt all year. He came back and he got hurt again. He's hitting 220, 0 home runs. They paid him a lot of money to play in Colorado. What do you do? Go.
I would rather keep him if I could, but he's somebody that if I needed roster space, I'd be more likely to cut bait him than Elroy Jimenez.
That's fine. Okay.
He doesn't have quite as much upside. I love his position eligibility, but I think, listen, I'm like a mind-body expert. When a guy keeps having these kinds of problems, I'm like, I don't know.
Okay. So far,
he needs my help.
Max Muncie, who's hitting 150 for the year, 3 home runs. He can play either second base or shortstop, I believe. He's a utility guy, but he's having a horrible year. What do you do? Go.
Okay, well, first, it should be noted there's a second Max Muncie who's an Oakland shortstop. So he does have shortstop eligibility, but only when he's a totally different person. When he's the guy you're talking about, he's a first base, second base, and third base guy. He's hitting terribly. I still would probably hold him at this point in the year, but I'm losing my patience. And it depends on how deep your benches are. Do not be afraid to cut the guy. If you need to move on and there's a hot hitter, you can move on from this guy if you need to. I still probably will lean towards holding.
Randy Arozarena.
Hey, Arozarena.
Hey, Arozarena. So 264, 4 home runs. He's not really a great fantasy guy to have on your team. And for me, I like him. He heated up in the World Series a couple years ago. I love him. But I'm just saying, he's not a great fantasy guy like you would expect.
All right, hold on. Hold your horses. Would you ever cut Randy Arozarena? No. Absolutely
Randy Arozarena.
Never. If you want to trade him, fine. But do not cut that guy.
Okay, that's okay. JT Realmuto.
Name.
He's hitting 238 for the year, 2 home runs.
You do not cut an elite catcher of any kind, even if there's
let's say you could pick. Let's just say JJ Melendez is available. William Contreras is the guys we mentioned today on waiver wire. But you would keep him and just be in agony watching him get out every time you watch a Philadelphia Phillies game.
No, I would keep him and stop watching. You have to stop watching when they're doing that.
Here's an easy one. I know the answer, but I just want to throw it out there because he hasn't started hitting yet.
A guy like that, especially at a weak position like that, you never.
Okay, fine. I'm not disagreeing. So Juan Soto, I know the answer, but he's hitting 236 and has I think he has 8 home runs for the year. But I know you keep him, but do you start maybe not playing him in games now? What's your deal with Juan Soto?
I mean, he's still very valuable. He's not doing what you never sit Juan Soto. I mean, I want to see him basically, if he's not hitting anything at all for about 6 weeks, I might sit him for a couple games. Okay. He's that talented. I would never.
So we'll play this game next week. I think it's only good if it's a redraft league. Again, it's nothing to do with dynasty. It has nothing to do with keeper leagues because some of these guys, of course, you're going to keep. But I think just because the season, again, June 1st is next Tuesday, I believe, and it's we're getting to All-Star break. The season's 3 months left, so it's very important that your players are playing well. And if they're not playing well, there's no reason why you can't cut them. So that's why I'm asking you these questions.
I think it's great. I love playing this game. Let's do it again. The only thing that I will say is that June 1st is actually Wednesday.
Was it Wednesday? I thought it was Tuesday.
Oh, it's all right. Little stat correction here.
I'm excited. It's Memorial Day weekend. A lot of baseball on. I suggest you guys watch it. It's always a fun time. A lot of games, a lot of action, a lot of American flags. So enjoy yourself for Memorial Day.
It's been a pleasure, guys. And we have one last observation. Chris Atwater says Juan Soto started really slowly last year, but exploded later. And guess what? I dealt him to Chris Atwater, and that's why we both remember that very well. Chris, glad it worked out for you.
Chris, I have Aaron Judge, and he has 17 home runs right now. So let me know what you also have. I have Clay Holmes, too. He's the new closer for the New York Yankees. So I have a lot of stuff.
All right, Ross is open for business. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we'll get back to you personally. Thank you for watching.
Cliff Octane, new flavor, Laser Lemon, plus 125 milligrams of clean caffeine, no sugar,
25 milligrams of CBD.
Meow available at QCliff.com.